What if I told you that a man lived over 2,000 years ago? Not to start a religion, but to teach you how to wake up, how to break the systems you were born into, how to stop existing and start living. You've heard his name your whole life. You've seen him on necklaces and paintings and stained glass, but you missed the point. Jesus didn't die just to forgive sin. He came to expose illusion, to rip the mask off the world's lies, to say, "You're not what they told you. You're not who you pretend to be. You're more." But to become that version of you, something has to die. Your ego, your image, your addiction to fitting in. Because truth doesn't feel good at first. It feels like fire, like loss, like waking up in a world that wants you asleep. Jesus didn't speak in slogans. He spoke in shocks. He didn't sell answers. He dropped bombs. Deny yourself. Love your enemies. Lose your life to find it. These weren't poetic lines. They were confrontations. Direct hits to the soul. Because he knew that real transformation doesn't come from comfort. It comes from disruption. He looked people in the eye and told them, what you're calling life is actually slavery. Slavery to performance, to pleasure, to people's opinions. And the scariest part? You get used to it. You decorate your prison and call it peace. But he came to shake the cage, to say, wake up. You were made for more, but more costs. The truth is never cheap. That's why most people reject it. He never tried to please crowds. In fact, the more honest he got, the more people walked away. Because truth divides. Not because it's cruel, but because it reveals who's ready and who's still pretending. Jesus wasn't interested in polite followers. He wanted people brave enough to burn the life they built on lies. That's why he said, if anyone wants to follow me, let them deny themselves. That wasn't religious poetry. It was an invitation to war, an internal war, between who you are and who you pretend to be, between what's easy and what's real, between who you love and who you fear. And the truth is, most people never follow. They just admire from a distance, hoping inspiration can replace transformation. You keep asking for clarity, but clarity is not your problem. Courage is. You already know what has to change, what you need to walk away from, what part of you needs to die so something greater can be born. But you're still negotiating, still trying to find a way to evolve without letting go. Jesus didn't give people options. He gave them ultimatums, light or darkness, truth or comfort, cross or control. And when people hesitated, he walked away. Not because he didn't care, but because he wouldn't beg. He knew the truth. No one is forced into freedom. You have to want it. Want it enough to lose your image, your audience, your excuses. That's the price. And he paid it first so you'd have no excuse not to follow. He wasn't killed because he was nice. He was killed because he told the truth. Because he exposed systems built on fear, on control, on comfort. He confronted religious leaders not with violence but with presence, with authority that didn't ask for validation, with wisdom that made men furious, not because it was false, but because it was too real. And when you start becoming who you really are, expect the same. Expect resistance. Expect to lose invitations, lose relationships, lose roles you never should have been playing. Jesus wasn't just crucified to save you. He was crucified to show you what becoming really costs. And if you're not losing anything, maybe you're not becoming anything. He looked people in the eye and told them they were free, while they were still in chains. Because freedom doesn't begin on the outside. It begins in the mind, in the choice to stop being a slave to everything external, to say no to what wants to find you, to burn the script. That's what scared the rulers the most, not his miracles, his mindset, that a man could walk through this world untouched by its applause, unshaken by its threats. And he said, follow me, which means, don't just believe, become. Think like I think, move how I move, love how I love, even if it gets you hated, even if it gets you crucified, because that's where life begins. right where the old you ends. You keep calling it wisdom, but it's really fear. You say you're waiting on God, but deep down you're afraid to move, afraid to become someone your circle won't recognize, afraid to walk away from the life that others praised but your soul rejected. Jesus didn't wait for everyone to approve his mission. He obeyed. And in his obedience, he offended people, disappointed people, left people behind. And still, he moved. Because he wasn't here to play roles. He was here to reveal reality, and so are you. But you won't become the person you were born to be while clinging to the version they applauded. Growth requires betrayal. The betrayal of every expectation they placed on you that God didn't. You weren't born to blend in. You were born to burn, to carry light that doesn't ask for permission, to embody truth even when it isolates you. Jesus never apologized for his clarity. He never softened his words to be more relatable. He spoke what needed to be said, even when it cost him everything. Because he knew the price of silence, the weight of pretending. And he loved people enough to lose their approval. That's the love the world doesn't understand. Love that tells the truth even when it hurts. And that's the path he left for you. Not a path of comfort, but of confrontation. With yourself, with the system, with every lie that ever convinced you to stay small. You ready? He didn't just walk on water. He walked through shame, through accusation, through betrayal, through silence that would have broken most men. And he didn't defend himself, because he didn't need to. Truth doesn't need to scream, it just stands. And that's what he's trying to teach you. That strength isn't noise. It's conviction. It's not about being loud, it's about being unmovable. He didn't teach his followers how to win arguments. He taught them how to carry crosses. And if your faith isn't costing you your pride, your plans, your popularity, it's probably not faith. It's fashion. Real faith burns. And that's why he's still relevant over 2,000 years later. Because truth doesn't age. It confronts every generation, the same illusions with the same fire. We made him cute, tame, easy to digest. But the real Jesus wasn't safe. He was a storm. He flipped tables. He cursed trees. He broke rules that needed breaking. Not to rebel, but to realign. To say this is not what God looks like. He came to confront systems that used God's name but not his heart. And that confrontation still stands. He's not calling you to be nice. He's calling you to be true. And that truth will make you a threat. To religion, to culture, to every lie that says you can't be bold and holy at the same time. Jesus wasn't passive. He was precise. And if you're going to follow him, you'll have to stop being polite with what's poisoning you. You're not tired because you're weak. You're tired because you're pretending to be okay, pretending to be who they expect, pretending to believe things your soul outgrew. And Jesus sees that. That's why he said, "Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." But rest doesn't mean inactivity. It means alignment. He wasn't offering a vacation. He was offering a new identity. One not built on striving, proving, or earning. But to step into it, you have to lay the old self down. Not fix it. Not improve it. Crucify it. The old you can't enter the new place. That's the lesson. That's the invitation. And that's why it still hurts. Because you're still holding on to someone you were never meant to be. You think the pain is punishment, but it's not. It's pruning. Jesus said, "Every branch that bears fruit, he prunes so it will be even more fruitful." You're being cut not because you're failing, but because you're growing. And growth is violent to what's false. It tears away dead routines, false relationships, and the noise that numbs you. That's why becoming hurts. It exposes how long you've been asleep. But he didn't come to comfort your sleep. He came to wake you up. And once you taste that light, you'll never unsee it. That's why the old world feels unbearable now. Why the lies you used to accept make you nauseous. Because resurrection is real. And once it begins, everything stale starts to rot. And you're rising. He never said the way would be easy. He said it would be narrow. He never said the crowd would follow. He said most would reject it. Because this path requires death, the death of your image, your need to be liked, your addiction to control. Jesus never sugarcoated the cost. Count the cost. He said, pick up your cross. Not your brand, not your dream. Your cross. That means something in you has to die every day so something eternal can live. That's why the journey feels so raw. You're not being punished. You're being purified, burned clean of what no longer serves you. And every step away from comfort is a step into your calling. Because calling won't be found where it's easy. It waits where it costs. He didn't come to start a religion. He came to start a revolution. One that begins inside. A total overthrow of the ego. A war against the false self. That's why his words still cut, still offend, still liberate. Because they aim straight at the soul. He didn't want better behavior. He wanted new birth. And birth is messy, it's loud, it hurts. But it delivers you into a world where masks don't survive. Where honesty replaces performance. Where spirit outranks status. That's why he was dangerous. And why, if you follow him for real, you will be too. Not by trying, but by being. By refusing to lie. By walking in truth even when it costs your comfort, your position, your old life. Especially then. They called him a threat because he didn't follow the script. He spoke with authority, not titles. He healed without asking permission. He taught without needing approval. And when they couldn't control him, they tried to cancel him, permanently. But even death couldn't keep him silent. That's the lesson. When you walk in truth, they might silence your voice, but they'll never silence your impact. Jesus didn't leave behind buildings or brands. He left behind people, awakened, transformed, unstoppable. And now it's your turn. You've been quiet long enough, careful long enough, controlled long enough. The time for subtlety is over. The world is desperate for clarity, for power, for someone who doesn't just quote truth, but embodies it. That's you. If you're bold enough to stop hiding, your silence isn't peace, it's agreement. Every time you hold back what's real, you empower what's false. And Jesus never did that. He didn't play politics. He didn't negotiate with darkness. He named it, confronted it, cast it out. And when he said, "Follow me," he meant walk like that, speak like that, love like that. Not the nice filtered version, but the raw, holy, world-shaking version. And no, it won't make you popular, but it will make you powerful. Because the person who walks in truth doesn't beg for rooms, they shift them. You weren't meant to tiptoe through life trying not to offend. You were meant to move with fire, to be light in a system built on shadows. That's what he taught. That's what he lived. That's what he's calling out in you. He was never afraid to be misunderstood. And if you're going to follow him, you can't be either. You've spent too much time explaining, softening, shrinking, just to make others feel comfortable around your growth. But Jesus didn't clarify his every move. He didn't beg people to stay. When the rich young ruler walked away, he let him go. Because truth doesn't chase. It stands. And if someone can't handle your clarity, they were only loyal to your confusion. This is the test of transformation. Not who claps when you change, but who stays when you stop performing. Jesus didn't come to make you safe. He came to make you whole. And sometimes wholeness looks like losing what once kept you broken. He spoke in parables not to confuse, but to filter, to separate those who were hungry for truth from those addicted to comfort. And he's still doing it. You're hearing this now because something in you is hungry, not for religion, not for inspiration, but for awakening, for alignment, for truth that cracks the shell you've been living in. You don't need more advice. You need to remember who you are, who you were before they labeled you, before you conformed, before you became palatable. That's what Jesus came to restore, not just your soul, but your sight, your awareness, your permission to walk in power that doesn't beg to be understood, that simply walks and shakes the ground with every step. He knew who he was before anyone praised him, and he still knew who he was when they shouted, "Crucify him." That's the level of identity he modeled, unshaken, unedited, unbought. And that's the kind of identity you're being invited into. But you can't access it while still needing the approval of people who benefit from your confusion. You'll have to decide, do I want applause? Or do I want authority? One fades the moment you're no longer convenient. The other echoes for eternity. Jesus didn't leave Impact because he tried to be relevant. He left Impact because he was real, fully. And in a world addicted to filters, authenticity is rebellion. That's why you're here, to rebel against what's false. Not with hate, but with holiness. He didn't fit into anyone's box, so they tried to kill him. And yet, even on the cross, he remained free. Free from the need to explain. Free from the fear of loss. Free from the game of image. That's what he was teaching the whole time. Freedom doesn't come from escape. It comes from embodiment. From saying yes to the truth even when it costs everything. He could have saved himself, but he chose obedience over optics, purpose over popularity, and when he rose with power no system could contain. That's your blueprint. Stop trying to survive. Start choosing to rise. Not when it's easy, but now, while it still costs. That's where resurrection begins, right in the middle of your fear. He never taught you to escape the world. He taught you how to stand in it, holy, rooted, unshaken. That's the part most people miss. They want heaven without dying to earth, want transformation without shedding the roles. But Jesus made it clear, you are in the world, but not of it. That means you walk among the systems, but you're not controlled by them. You hear the noise, but you're not moved by it. You love people, but you don't worship their approval. That's the power he gave you, to exist fully, without apology, without dilution. The world doesn't need your conformity, it needs your clarity. It needs someone who doesn't just talk about truth, but lives it, even if it costs comfort, closeness, or the life you once loved. And when he said, "Follow me," he didn't mean to a church service. He meant into the wilderness, into tension, into truth. He meant, follow me into rejection, into becoming, into resurrection. He was showing you how to lose everything and still win. How to be emptied of ego, but full of purpose. And that's why his words still ring through centuries, because truth like that doesn't fade. It waits. For the moment you stop performing, stop hiding, and start becoming. This isn't about being more spiritual. It's about being more real, less filtered, less calculated, more fire. That's what he lived. That's what he left. And that's what he's still inviting you into. The only question left is, will you move? You've heard his name your whole life, but maybe for the first time you're hearing his voice. And it's not soft. It's not safe. It's the kind of voice that splits your soul from your story, that cuts through the excuses, that calls out the version of you you've buried beneath culture, comfort, and fear. He didn't speak to your image. He spoke to your essence. And that essence is still there, waiting. Not for perfection, for surrender, for honesty, for the moment you finally admit, I can't keep doing this. I can't keep performing, pretending, surviving. I need to live, fully, boldly, unapologetically. That's what he died to give you, not rules, not a religion, but a resurrection. He lived over 2,000 years ago, but what he said still slices through time like a sword. Because he wasn't just talking to crowds back then, he was talking to you, right now. Through these words, through this moment, not to condemn, but to awaken, to say, you were made for more, but more will cost you everything false. So what are you holding on to? What version of yourself needs to die so you can finally breathe again? This isn't inspiration, it's invitation. To stop surviving, to start becoming, to walk in fire and not be burned, to step into who you've always been. Not someday, today. This is your moment. Answer it.